Alright, welcome back. So based on the response I got from my timeline as prophecy video, the first one, I'm going to be proceeding with this series in order to show people the evidence of how I arrived at this information you see here in front of you. This timeline that's essentially representative of the future 7-year period of tribulation that's beginning in 2029. And when I show you this, I want you to understand I'm showing you what I already know. This is exactly what's being communicated to us. If you're alive today, this is the scripture that you're living out. That is what is being communicated to us. So we're going to start with the beginning point, which is the beginning of tribulation in the timeline, November 2nd of 2029. And I'm going to show you with world events and sports, etc., of how they align things with this timeline. So to begin with, Daniel's 70th week, or the 7-year tribulation period, the time of Jacob's trouble, however you want it, whatever you want to call it. You can read about it in Daniel chapter 9. But if you go to verse 27, it talks about Daniel's 70th week, with 70 being a very important number. And essentially, the Bible says that we have 490 years of tribulation, with 483 already being fulfilled. So there's a future week left. A day is a year, a week is 7 years. So there was a Suns and Celtics game on March 24th of 2017. And the Suns came into this game 9-27 away, okay, like chapter 9 verse 27 of the Bible in Daniel. And their win record is 229, like the year 2029. Now in this game, Devin Booker scores 70 points, and if you watched it like I did, you know, in garbage time the Suns were fouling the Celtics, you know, seemingly with no point, to get Devin Booker to 70 points. And as I said in a previous video, it was so much so that one of the players, Isaiah Thomas, said after the game, I've never seen that before. So why did they do that? And I'm going to show you why. And I'm going to show you exactly how they align things with these dates. So as you can see, their record was constructed around this 7-year tribulation period, okay? Now, from Devin Booker's date of birth to the day of the game, March 24th, you have a span of what you see here in front of you highlighted in the bottom, 7,451 days. Now, the 943rd prime number is 7,451, but its mere 349, its prime number is 70. So he has what I would like to refer to as a lifespan that is associated with 70. Now, and that's not all. So from this game to the beginning of tribulation, you have a span here in front of you of 12 years, 7 months, and 9 days. And if you go to chapter 9, verse 27, and you decode that verse in the book of Daniel, you get a value in reverse full reduction of 1279. So again, that's a number that's representative of the future tribulation period. Now, not to mention, the record coming into the game was like the chapter and the verse, 927, and then the duration is the gematria associated with the verse. We're not through. Now, from the game to the end of the 70th week, you have a span of 235 months and 10 days. You remove the zero because it doesn't mean anything in numerology. You have a value of 2,351. The 349th prime is 2,351, and the 70th prime, like I just talked about, is 349. So again, you not only have a representation of 70 in his lifespan, but you do to the beginning of the 7-year period and to the end of the 7-year period. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next one. Actually, it's up top here. Now, the whole George Floyd incident in 2020 did bring us through a period of, somewhat of, you could say tribulation. And pursuant to the incident, they came out to his, all the, world leaders and civil rights leaders and all the people on the world stage came out to his first memorial, where they gave him a eulogy on 6/4 of 2020. And I spoke about this in a previous video. That number that they continuously wanted to project, 846, despite it having really no relevancy to the incident, I told you it was a reference to tribulation. Now, from the memorial to the beginning of tribulation, so what I'm saying in that is that they specifically picked this date to hold the memorial on June 4th of 2020, because to the beginning of tribulation you have a span of 112 months and 29 days. And if you write that out here in America at that date, you would write it out just like the duration, 11/2/29. Now, Mr. Floyd's values in Gematria is also like the date, 112 and 229, as you see here in front of you. Okay, the next one is going to be the second beast of Revelation, which is shortly after the beginning of the tribulation period. And the date centered around that is January 9th of 2030. And again, we're going to take a look at some evidence that supports that. Now, just to start off with, when you read the New International Version of the Holy Bible, if you go to Revelation chapter 13, verses 11 through 17, you notice that they're their own separate paragraph. When you decode those verses, you get the values in Gematria that you see here in front of you. In the first one, in simple English, A is 1, B is 2, 3 is C, and so forth to 26, which is Z. But in simple English, you get a value of 9,130. And a lot of people in the world would write that like a date, January 9th of 2030. Now in America, we would write it, September 1st of 2030. But the date that it is meant to represent is undoubtedly January 9th of 2030. And again, we're going to proceed with showing you why that is. Now, if you're somebody that is new to this information, the world of sports is rigged, and it's rigged by this numerical code. Okay? This is something that I know. Now, in this game you have here in front of you, you have a game being played between the Rams and the Cardinals. They're playing on the date January 1st of 2017. This is the only date on the Gregorian calendar that you would write that looks exactly like the verses in Revelation chapter 13, 11 through 17, 1117. Now, what this game demonstrates is the significance of the Gematria associated with these verses. Now, and the reason that is because the score is 44-6. And again, when you decode the verses 11 through 17, in reverse full reduction, you get a value of 4,406. This is really the only rational score they can draw out of these four numerical values. 44-6. They can't do 37-75. They can't do 12-821. They can't do 91-30. So it tends to reason that this would be logical why they would use this score. So again, just to put that in perspective, the only date on the Gregorian calendar that reads 1117, they do a score that's representative of the Gematria associated with verses 11 through 17. Now, why was it the Rams and the Cardinals? Both of them are from St. Louis, Missouri. The Rams used to be the St. Louis Rams, and the Cardinals, I believe, used to be the St. Louis Cardinals. I know they're both from St. Louis originally or previously. But in Gematria, St. Louis, Missouri equals 1117 in the Jewish cipher. And that is the most important cipher out of the 4 base ciphers. Okay, now on to the next one. You have a game being played of the same 2 teams, the Rams and the Cardinals. Now, this game right here essentially demonstrated the importance of the gematria of verses 11 through 17. Now I'm going to show you how it's used in accordance with the date durations. These 2 teams had another game on December 23rd of 2018. It was 31-9. Now again, the gematria of the verses equals 9130. It's kind of like you would read that backwards, except you get rid of the 0 because it doesn't mean anything. The reason why they did this score on this date is because from 12/23 of 2018 to January 9th of 2030, you have a span that's just like the just like the verses of Revelation. It's 11 years and 17 days. So again, a very fitting date to have that score with 2 very fitting teams. Okay, so in the previous video, I also mentioned Mr. Obama. So he wrote a book called A Promised Land, which is essentially prophecy in the Bible. Okay, and it's prophecy for Israel. Okay, just like the tribulation period is about God going back to deal with the Jews. This book was released on November 17th of 2020, and that date is the only date that can can be a date that can represent the verses of Revelation 13:11 through 17, and have a date duration that's like the date. So as you see below here, he releases it on November 17th of 2020, and the date duration is like the date, and it's like the values of 11 through 17. It's 109 months and 23 days. If you just remove the zeros, which don't mean anything, you have the actual numerical values, which is 1923. Okay, now the next is a White Sox and Cubs game, and Obama held office in Illinois. So they play on 5/3 of 2022. And coming into this game, they both have the record 9-1-3. Again, the values of 11 through 17 is 9130. You remove the 0 because it doesn't mean anything. And 913 is also like a shuffle of the date. So the 2 teams from Illinois come into this game on this day, 9 and 13, and the date duration 2/19 of 2030 is 7 years, 8 months, and 1 week, which can be read as 187. That is important because the 187th prime number is 1117, like the verses 11 through 17. Now, also what's important about 193, Obama was number 44, and 193 is the 44th prime number. And there's currently 193 member states in the United Nations. And if you're familiar with the NBA, Zion Williamson just signed or agreed to a $193 million contract. Zion is a synonym for Israel. And they held it, like you see here in front of you, they held the Zion Williamson sweepstakes on Israel's birthday in 2019, as well as his name gematria having a value of 187. And like I just said, the 187th prime number is 1117. Okay, on to the next date, and that is the date that is centered around the mark of the beast described in the Bible. That is May 3rd of 2033. And my thought has been that that is the beginning of whatever the mark of the beast is going to be, and it's going to carry us into, likely the next year, the year of the tiger in 2034. Now, what you have here in front of you is the text of Revelation, what it equals in Gematria, the whole book of Revelation. If you want to decode this book yourself, you can do so. You only include what's in the text and you remove the numbers. So when you decode the book of Revelation, you get a value of 532,033, like you see here in front of you in English Ordinal, that reads 532033, just like you would write the full date, May 3rd of 2033. This book, the amount of letters you decode is 47,545 letters. So if you're new to this information, the way to put that in perspective is you're taking essentially 47,545 random numbers 1 through 26, and you're adding them up, and you get that sum that's like a date, which is in the near future. It demonstrates beyond any probability that it was done on purpose. So what are they trying to tell us? Now, just based on my experience, I can tell you other Bible verses that are associated with this date are Daniel 7:7, Daniel 7:23, which are essentially just the fourth beast of Daniel. Matthew 24:21, which talks about great tribulation, and Revelation 13:18, which talks about the mark of the beast. Now I'm going to skip down to Kobe Bryant here. Kobe Bryant told us a lot. And I'm going to show you what they were communicating to us with his life. Now, he lived 497 months and 3 days. 4,973 is the 666 prime number. He was famous for his 666 workout. He scored 81 points in his 666 NBA game against the Raptors. And if you look below, the reason why it's against the Raptors is because Toronto, Canada, and Tribulation have very similar gematria. Now, all this isn't by chance. This is clearly, meant to be communication to us. And that's something we need to, keep our eyes open. We need to keep an open mind and try to figure out what they're telling us. And this is what I've been doing. Kobe Bryant is also from Philadelphia, which gets its name from Revelation, and he passed away in a helicopter, which has a numerical value of 666. Now, also what was interesting about Kobe Bryant is that his full name and mark of the beast, which is talked about in Revelation 13:18, have the same values in the reduction ciphers, 54 and 81, and I'm going to show you why they were pertinent to his scripture. From his date of birth to 5/3/2033, which is the date centered around the mark of the beast of the Bible, is 656 months and 10 days. 6,561 has a square root of 81. So 81, not only did he score that in his 666 NBA game, but in Gematria, mark of the beast has a value of 81. And from his first NBA game to May 3rd of 2033, and he didn't start in the season opener. It wasn't the season opener. I believe it was the second game of the season for the Lakers. 11/3/96, and to May 3rd of 2033 is exactly 438 months. And in base 8 counting, in the base 8 system, 438 is 666, and that is relevant. Now, from the day of his passing to May 3rd of 2033 is 159 months and 7 days. And 1,597 is the 251st prime number. And the 54th prime number is 251. So he has a connection of 54 from the date of his passing to May 3rd of 2033. And just like his actual date of birth, he has a connection to May 3rd of 2033 of 81. And again, Mark of the Beast and Kobe B. Bryant, 54 and 81. And lastly, last but not least, the New International Version. And again, the New International Version gives us a mathematical and logical explanation as to specific dates of prophecy. I don't. If you don't understand that, this is what this is about. I mean, I'm explaining to you what I know. It's hard to wrap your mind around it, but it does. Now, the New International Version was published on 1/1, January 1st of 1973, and on May 3rd of 2033, it'll be 60 years old, and on the 123rd day of its age, and May 3rd of 2033 is also the 123rd day of the year. And in Gematria, the Holy Bible equals 60 and 123, so it's a very fluent alignment for that date. Now, to show you how they do sports scores in regards to the date for May 3rd of 2033, you have a game being played on November 23rd of 2003 between the Saints and the Eagles. The Eagles, are from Philadelphia, and as I said, they get their name from Revelation of the Bible. So they face the Saints, and they do a score of 20-33, just like the year 2033. And the date duration to May 3rd of 2033 is 29 years and 161 days. Now, the 241st prime number is 29,161, and the 53rd prime number is 241. So that's the reduction you get in the date duration. You essentially have a reduction to a mathematical relationship to 53 in the date duration. So you have a value that's representative of the date, 5-3, and the score that's like the year, 2033. Now, on to the next date, which is November 2nd of 2036 and November 3rd of 2036 as well, which is the date centered around the Battle of Armageddon. I know that's hard to wrap your mind around, but this is what's being communicated to us. What's very interesting about the date 11/2/36 is that 11,236, like the date, has a square root of 106. And why that's important is because prophecy in the simple cipher is 106. Now, there was a story in the mainstream media reported about Obama dancing with a 106-year-old woman. And this story caught my attention because of the number. So when I looked into it, I found that it was something that they were communicating to us. It was a piece of information that showed us the significance of the date that I'm presenting, November 2nd of 2036. So this comes from the White House's website. They released a statement from the lady that was dancing with Mr. Obama. And it reads, as you see here in front of you, I'm not going to read it all, but it starts out with, "I thought I would never live to get in the White House." And when you decode this statement, again, this is communication. It's not really relevant that he's dancing with a 106-year-old lady. I know people like to think that, but what this really truly is communication. And if you're wise enough to listen, they tell you what's coming our way. When you decode this verse, or excuse me, not the verse, the statement they released, you get a value in the simple cipher of 1,616, like you see here in front of you. And that reads 1616. 1616 is the only chapter and verse in the Bible that mentions Armageddon. So when I went to this story, what caught my attention was the 106 number. And lo and behold, I decode their statement that they release, and it equals a value that's representative of the only verse in the Bible that mentions Armageddon. And from the date of the story, February 22nd of 2016 to 11/2 of 2036, it's exactly 1,080 weeks. And the lady that Mr. Obama danced with in the English Sumerian cipher is exactly 1080. And why that could be relevant is that Armageddon is an actual place in Israel. As you see here in front of you, I believe it's called the Hill of Megiddo. But where ancient Sumer was, it wouldn't have been too far from there. And if you decode Armageddon in Hebrew ordinal, Hebrew gematria, you got a value of 61, which is the 18th prime, which you kind of see a lot of in her name gematria. Now, in this game, you had a recent game being played on June 24th of this year, and the Orioles pick up their 903rd win against the White Sox, and again, the team from Illinois. And they're getting their 903rd win against the White Sox, while the White Sox are picking up their 20th and 36th loss. Their 36th loss of the season and their 20th loss at home, just like the year 2036. And why that's important is because Mr. Obama will be 903 months old on 11/3/2036. And 903 is the 42nd triangular number. And just to show you, I put my money where my mouth is. This is a bet slip from that day where I bet on the Orioles to pick up their 903rd win. And I believe the Yankees lost to the Orioles that day. They went 30-9 at their home or away record on that day. So that's all I have for today. I thank you for listening. If you stayed through the whole presentation, I appreciate it. Again, I'm going to be making this a series to show you the evidence of what I already know about what's being communicated to us. Thanks again. Have a wonderful day.